Aniston, Manager of Partnership Programs for the NFCC and your host for today's Financial Facts Chat. If you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, thank you so much. We're really glad to have you with us today. And if you like today's show, please do like the video, comment, share with friends, subscribe to the page, all of that good stuff. It all helps demonstrate your support for this channel and for our nonprofit financial education mission. So I did want to take a moment to introduce Bruce McClary, SVP of Communications here for the NFCC. Bruce is back once again, ready to answer your financial questions. So how's it going, Bruce?
It's going great. Things are busy as they usually are, but there's a lot going on, and there's so much happening right now. And I think first off, what I want to talk about just before we get into the questions and everything, with all that's going on right now, with the stuff that's happening in Texas, especially, I just wanted to acknowledge some of the issues that people are facing in Texas. Obviously, that has financial implication, but first and foremost, it's life and health and safety for the people involved there. But just to mention that anybody impacted by the issues that are taking place, the power outages, the water lines breaking, people whose homes are damaged and require repair, there are obviously financial implications there, and people may not be in the best place to be able to afford recovery. And may need to lean on some resources, and nfcc.org is a resource that people can lean on if they're looking for advice on managing a budget after a natural disaster or a crisis. So I just wanted to mention that. I know we're live now, but people may be watching this a little bit later, may need to access some of those resources. So I just wanted to mention that too. And of course, my heart goes out to everybody in Texas right now, given what they're having to deal with on top of the pandemic and everything else.
Definitely. And that's a great reminder. nfcc.org is that website, and please do check it out. Refer it to your friends. We're here to help for sure.
Yes, indeed. But other things that are happening right now, it's tax time. People are thinking about taxes, and if you want to go back and look at, we did a program previously on the issue of, should you pay taxes with your credit card? What can you do? What resources are out there? So you can check out that content as well on Facebook or YouTube, and watch that older episode about taxes and credit. So that's one of the things there. And people are still struggling with their New Year's resolutions to pay down debt. So there's a lot of discussion that we had in previous episodes about paying down debt and getting ahead of that and keeping up with your New Year's resolution. So a lot of good content. Be sure to go back through some of the archives and check out some of our recent programs. That information is not stale yet. So it might be able to help you through some of those challenges.
Yeah, good reminder. And before we do jump into the questions, I did want to let everyone know that we love answering your questions. Please do drop them in the chat box during our video today. We're happy to answer them on the show if we can get to them. Otherwise, send them to us by email. Check out our blog. You can communicate with us there, here in our live chat. Any of those are great options to direct your questions to us, and we really do love answering them. So let's go ahead and jump into our topic. And today we're going to be talking kind of all about what happens to you and your accounts when you do start to fall behind on credit card payments. So one of the common themes of the questions we've been getting in our Ask an Expert series is sort of from people who have started the year a little bit behind on payments, haven't been able to climb out from under that growing amount of money owed. And we're also going to cover some of the changes that will occur with debt collection rules this year. So let's jump right in with our first question here, which is, what takes place behind the scenes at the credit card company when an account does fall behind? And how does that impact the cardholders and their accounts?
Well, that's a really good question, Rachel. And that allows me to use some of my past experience as a debt collector and working for a lender and a creditor to help give people a better sense of what's happening as this timeline unfolds. And, one of the things I want to mention too, I mean, you never want to intentionally stop paying your debts. I was shocked when I was looking through social media content earlier this week. And there are some bloggers and content creators out there who are generating headlines that say, don't pay your debt, stop paying your debt. That's dangerous advice. And unless there's some kind of an angle, if that's just clickbait and then they're saying, oh no, we were just kidding, go ahead and pay your debt, then I think it's dangerous to follow the advice that they're giving you there. You should never intentionally just stop paying your debt. There are consequences. You need to be aware of those consequences, and it's important to work with your creditor to try to resolve those issues. And if you can't resolve them that way, there are other resources that are available, which I'll mention a little bit later, that can help you overcome some of those obstacles in the way of repaying your debt. But to answer the question, you were asking about what happens on the other side when you start falling behind on your debt. What is the credit card company thinking? What is the lender doing? And what steps are they taking to try to reach you and to try to collect the money that you owe? Initially, what happens is in the earliest stages, let's just work this timeline from the beginning. Let's say you're a few days late. If you're a few days late with your payment, you may not really get a lot of communication from your creditor, but you may receive a text or an email or some kind of some form of direct communication where they're just reminding you, hey, you missed a payment. That's not going to happen the very next day after you missed the payment, but sometime between that day and 30 days later, you may be getting some kind of a call or an email or some kind of a communication. When you get to the point where you're into the next billing cycle and you're already a month past due on your payment, that's when things start ratcheting up a little bit. And what they're really trying to do at that stage, I think their primary goal is to help you get back on track so you can keep your account open. Because at this stage, your account is not shut down. They're not going to be closing your account. They're not going to be shutting it down. They're not going to prevent you from using the account as you've used it before. So for that, I think for that aspect of it, you can still salvage things if you reach out and you're proactive. That's very important. But you will be hit with late fees. You will be hit with other penalties. They could even raise your interest rate. So if you miss a payment, you fall behind, that means you're not repaying according to the terms of the contract. And they're very clear. When you apply for a line of credit at the very beginning, they will tell you in the user agreement, in the contract, terms of the loan, the credit card agreement, they'll tell you what the penalties are if you do not repay the account or manage the account as agreed. And, it may be that they charge you a late fee until you get caught up. It may be that they increase your interest rate from the rate that you were given when you were approved for the account, and this a much higher penalty rate, which can be as high as 36% in some cases. You never want that. And all of those extra rates and fees just make it more difficult for you to get back on track and get ahead and restore the account to good standing. And all the while this is happening, when you get to the point where you're 60 days past that payment that you missed, the information is very likely showing up on your credit report. So that also penalizes you because that lowers your credit score. And a lower credit score means that you have possibly less access to credit when it comes time to borrow. And when you do have access to credit, it comes at a higher cost. So it's more expensive for you to borrow. So you don't want to penalize yourself that way either. So there's just so much at stake here that these early stages of missing a payment are very critical. And it's one of the reasons why you should reach out and try to have that conversation with your creditor before things get worse. And so within that 30-day period after you miss the payment, and if you know you're not going to be able to make a payment when the next bill comes around, get on the phone, reach out, talk to your creditor, have a conversation. And again, There are other resources that can help you out that can provide advice, can provide guidance, and help you through this situation if you're not getting the answers you're looking for from your creditor. So that's one of the, I think that's one of the ways that you can tackle the situation in the early stages. But the longer you wait, the harder it gets. I guess that's the main point that I would make.
And while we're on the subject of kind of the timing here, at what point does the account get sold to a collection agency? And after that happens, is there still a chance to save the account so it could be used again?
Yeah, that's a really good question too, because the urgency of the communication from your creditor does ratchet up the pressure to resolve the issue during that 60-day period after your missed payment. But going beyond that, if you're looking at what they're telling you, you can sort of see the signs of what's ahead, and they'll be clear about whether they're going to be shutting your account down. They'll tell you that your account is in jeopardy, but at the point when they close your account permanently is usually when it goes off to a collection agency, a third-party collection agency. And that's typically around 120 days past due. It could be 90 days or 120 days past due. But when you get to 120 days past due, that account is very likely to be charged off. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So it's sold to a collection agency at that point. The collection agency is going to communicate a little bit differently. They're going to be asking for, they're going to be asking you to pay right away. They may be threatening to escalate the account. The collection agency is probably not going to offer you an opportunity to restore the account at that stage because the account has been closed. And even if it's been closed but hasn't been charged off yet, there might be a narrow window where you can do something with the creditor to rescue the account. You may not be able to reopen that very same account, but they may be able to move the balance over into another account that can be maintained that can be opened and maintained in good standing if you're able to resume payments with the new account. But the terms are going to be less favorable. You'll probably have a higher interest rate. I mean, there are all kinds of implications there. But again, that's like 90 to 120 days. You might have an opportunity to save the account. But beyond that, that's a different story.
Got it. So, could you explain a little bit more about charge-off and talk about the changes that are coming to the rules that debt collectors have to follow, and maybe give us some insight into when you think that might go into effect?
Yeah, I sure can. Charge-off is when the credit card company determines that at that particular point that the debt is not collectible anymore. In other words, it's not that it's not legally collectible, but it's just that their prospects for getting any payment on that account are almost zero, that they don't feel that they're going to be successful in recovering the balance that you owe. So they're going to write it off as a loss, and then that gives them the opportunity to sell the debt to a third-party collection agency. And in many times, they'll sell it for pennies on the dollar. And so this is where third-party debt collection agencies have an opportunity to make a profit, because they'll buy this debt at a discount. And then if they're able to recover the full balance or close to it, or just clear their profit margins, then it's a win for them. And that's how they stay in business. That's how they're making money. So when you're dealing with a third-party debt collection agency that's calling you about a charged-off debt, they're not asking you to resume monthly payments. They're not asking you to pay what you can. The conversation usually starts by them demanding that you pay the entire account off in full in a single payment, and that you do it right away. And if you can't, you may be able to negotiate some form of a slightly more affordable arrangement. But what I've found in those situations, and again, a debt collector, what I've found in those situations is that they're still going to want most or all the balance. The payment arrangement that they make, if they are able to split up that deal into multiple payments, is not going to be anything like the minimum monthly payments you were used to paying. And it's going to be very stressful, and oftentimes people are unable to keep to those arrangements. So I guess that's the situation you're dealing with when you're dealing with a third-party debt collector. And there are rules that the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act creates a set of rules that collection agencies have to follow. And last year, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau made an adjustment so that these rules have changed to recognize that there are now different forms of communication available to debt collectors than there were back in the 1970s, the last time this set of rules was created. So we now recognize things like social media. We now recognize things like texting and other forms of digital communication. And so the new set of rules for debt collectors gives them the opportunity to reach you by way of social media using direct messaging. They can't post publicly on your profile because that's a violation of privacy according to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. But if somehow they're able to reach you by way of direct messaging through these social media apps in a way that's private and is not seen by others, they may utilize that. Now, these rules do go into effect this year. Debt collectors will be able to start reaching people this way, but they don't go into effect until later this year. So I believe November is the go live date in terms of the rules for the debt collectors under the changes. So don't worry about it now, but keep it in mind later, especially if you're in a situation where you might be getting debt collection calls later in the year. And I would say this: if you are facing debt collection, if your account's falling behind, if you're dealing with any kind of troubles repaying your debt, reach out to a counselor with a nonprofit credit counseling agency. You can get in touch with one at nfcc.org. And if you go to nfcc.org, you can connect with a counselor. It's confidential. You can talk through your plan to repay your debt. They can provide you with workable solutions, and you can avoid some of the worst consequences that I described earlier about dealing with debt collectors, and some of the tactics that they're using now and some of the tactics that they'll be allowed to use later in the year when the new rules go into effect.
That's really good to know about some of those changes. I definitely wasn't aware of that. And I think it's important that people kind of know that that's a possibility coming up on the horizon.
Yeah, it's important to know. And if you want to know more about those rules, there's information. We have a blog on our website, nfcc.org, where you can read a little bit more about it. If you want to go straight to the source and hear it right from the horse's mouth, you can go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau website, where they have detailed information about the new rules governing debt collection and what you need to know. That's
great. Excellent resources. I think I'll check those out later myself, in fact. But, I think, Bruce, looks like the end of our questions. I'm not seeing any submitted yet in the box. So do you want to go right ahead and talk about our personal finance challenge that we undertook this last week?
Yes. Our little art project.
Yes.
So I'll post. I'm going to post a link where you can see the digital version of what we're going to be presenting. I know. So we both created vision boards, and this is an exercise that is recommended for anybody who wants to have their goals in front of them and create some motivation to reaching your goals. And so we thought it would be kind of fun for each of us to create a vision board and for ourselves, and do it two different ways. So not that there's any rhyme or reason to this, but but I decided to do the old school way with poster board, scissors, and glue stick. And Rachel decided to do it digitally and use apps and tools that are online that can help you create a vision board for yourself. So we'll do the best we can here in presenting these. Not able to screen share for some of it, but for the digital piece. But I will share the link. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first? How do you want to do this?
Happy either way. Why don't
Okay,
you
well,
go ahead?
let me share the link, and then I'll put my poster board up and try to.
Okay.
I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'll share the link here real quick. See, this is a link to a file on Box. So I believe we made it public. There you go. So I shared the link, and now I'm going to bring up. So this is my vision board, and what I'm going to try to do is change the screen orientation here. Well, that's not helping, is it? There we go.
There.
All right. So this might give me a little bit more room to present. So if you can see, so this is my 2021, and I put together all the different things that are important to me. So activity in this section right here, keep moving. I do kayaking, cycling, running. I want to take surfing lessons this year, so that's important.
Nice.
Health is important to me as well. So staying safe and staying well is important. And then obviously mental health is important. So I've got vacation here. This is the year that I might be able to take a vacation. So I've got that in the middle. And then decluttering is, and notice there's not a lot there.
Minimalist.
It's already a win. And then, of course, obviously here are my work goals. So I've got my work goals here. And then giving is important. So I want to make sure that charitable giving, and not just giving money, but also donating my time to causes that are important to me. But central to all of this is financial well-being. So I've got saving, investing, and managing my own money here in the middle. So that part is very important.
I love it. I found the same thing, that a lot of life goals are actually very tied to personal finance issues, and they're so interrelated. You know, it totally makes sense to put them all together and visualize them that way. I did want to ask you.
Well, go ahead.
I wanted to ask, did you set your goals ahead of time and then find images that fit the goals, or did you do it the other way around?
Yeah, I did. I set the goals ahead of time and I found images as best I could. But we talked a little bit before going live here that my challenge was I don't subscribe to a lot of magazines. So it was harder finding the images that matched my goals when cutting and pasting. So that was difficult. And my printer doesn't cooperate well enough to, find those images online and cut and paste them into the board. So I really had to stick to the magazine images to make it work. But yeah, I tried to stick to the list as best as possible.
Nice. That was my approach too. I mean, I think you could do it the other way around, where if you don't even really know what your personal goals are, you might actually want to be inspired by images and then use that as your kind of motivation to set the goals. So you have a lot of freedom, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I wish.
How about your experience here?
I have to say I had a lot of fun with this one. I kind of thought, when I first saw this challenge or this piece of advice turning up, I thought, oh, that's sort of like lighthearted or not very serious. And then while I was working on it, I was very glad that we tried it, because I realized it really is about goal setting. And I think that is actually very serious and important. And this is sort of just a different way of doing that might appeal to people who are more visual learners or like to have kind of a visual cue to keep their goal top of mind.
That's a good point. Not everybody is motivated and kept on track for their goals by the same kind of stimuli. So you have it in front of you, and I'm one of the same. I'm in that same category. It's got to be in front of me. It's got to be visual if I'm going to keep it in. If I'm going to keep focus on that goal. So this is a great way to do it. My artwork isn't the best, but but at least it's in front of me.
Well, I think, it's great to have it physical because mine was a digital like exercise, essentially. I used an online web tool to set up my board, and you can check it out using the link here under the video if you'd like. Basically, I'll go through my goals as a list here, and I've got it up on my screen, so I'm looking at it too. Mine were more kind of, I really stuck to just financial goals for this one. And so I use that as my guide, really. So my 4 goals were and I just kept it to this year, 2021. So I did update my budget. My second one was increase my savings a little bit. My third one was save for retirement. And my fourth one was budget for some travel and vacations. And so I chose images that were sort of reminders for all of those goals. And I also added a little calendar with a date on it that I thought was kind of cute, but it also is a reminder for me that I want to have made some progress on this within, halfway through the year, within 6 months. So I really liked it. I think it helped me determine what my goals are, really, so especially my short-term goals. And I think my challenge now, because this is a virtual board, is to put it somewhere that I still look at it. It's too easy to just let it live, on the cloud or wherever, and I won't even look at it. And I think that's one of the main advantages of having a hard copy vision board, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. But I think either way, I love the digital piece, and having seen it, and again, I put the link up on screen. It's also in the comments. People should go and take a look at what you put together because I think it was very well done.
Thank you. I had a great time doing it.
And you mentioned being able to use the tools and it helped you put together that visual design arrangement. But yeah, this was good. This was fun exercise, and it's the first time I've had to use scissors and glue sticks since grade school.
The fun thing about this activity is it was really low cost. I mean, your cost was really just the materials of like scissors and glue and the magazines, and mine was a free tool that's online and available and very user-friendly, I would add. So I think if it's something that viewers are curious about, I actually would recommend this one. I thought it was a lot of fun and very enlightening. And I think what I'll do with mine is make it my desktop background so it stays in my mind every time I open up my computer.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And because I scanned this, so I do have a digital copy, which is also linked on the side there. I may do the same with mine, and that way I can save some space here and recycle this. So
nice. That's so great.
So what do we have in store for the next big thing?
So the next one, our next personal finance challenge that we are going to try out for you is to sell an old item online. This is one that comes up a lot in these personal finance advice columns, blogs, listicles, things like that. I think everyone has something they want to, like you have on your board, Bruce, declutter in their house, maybe. I know I've got a pile of stuff that I want to get rid of, donate, and I think it might be a cool challenge to try to see if I can get a little bit of money for some of those items.
It's a great idea. And so we'll coordinate a little bit so we're not using the same service. be able to go and compare results, and show you a couple of different outcomes there. But and if there's anybody watching who wants to buy a bookcase or 2 bar stools, let me know in the comments section. I can make you a good deal. We'll just use this platform.
Perfect. We could just sell items back and forth to each other.
Yeah, I don't think this is the right venue, but anyway, I might get in trouble. But anyway, thanks so much, Rachel. This was great. I think we covered a lot of good info.
Yeah, thanks for the insight into all those questions and for sharing that awesome vision board. It's going to inspire me to work on my goals too.
Yes, excellent.
All right, take care, Bruce.
All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And remember, subscribe, like, and join us again next week. And you can see if we've made any progress selling stuff. And if you want to buy those items and we haven't sold them,